Hi everyone, I'm Cameron Hilton. I am an HR manager at Cisco Systems, and I also work as a leadership and career coach.
Great. Is this your first time here in Beijing?
No, I've been here, 3 or 4 times now.
So when was the last time?
Last time was during my MBA. I came, I was here for about a week. So that would be 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Compare the visit that you had last time with the visiting you're having now this time. Any changes have you found out?
Every time I come to Beijing, the whole thing is totally different. So it seems like one thing I really like about Beijing is that it's constantly changing. So some of the places that I went to 3 years ago, I've tried to go back to, but they're gone, you know. And so we call New York in America, we call New York the city that never sleeps. And I think Beijing is very similar in that it's constantly changing.
Yes, it's developing very fast. We kind of have a notion is like every year in Beijing you can see a small change. Every 3 years you see a gigantic, huge change.
Totally.
Good. We know that you're working at HR department at Cisco, so it's about managing people.
Yep.
Right? So what do you think is the most challenging thing regarding managing people?
Well, this isn't about Cisco, just in general. I think the tough thing with managing people is that no two people are the same. And so oftentimes you think that as a manager, you tend to treat your employees the way that you would want to be treated. But that may not be the employee the way that the employee wants to be treated. Every individual is different. And so when you try to come up with a policy or a rule or for managing employees, it's very difficult because every situation is unique.
Yes. So it also, I know there was like theories about leadership, right? There are two kinds of leadership. One is transactional leadership. The other one is transformational leader, right? Can you tell us what they are and how they are applied in the company?
Well, the type of leadership I like to talk with people about is servant leadership.
Oh, that's a different one.
So at least that's when servant leadership is the idea that you as a leader are responsible for serving the people that look up to you.
I see. So you're like a servant to your subordinates.
Correct.
I see. But you are actually the leader of them.
Right. Exactly. And by being a servant leader, you will have subordinates that are very loyal and very willing to do anything for you. I like to say that if you were a servant leader, your subordinates will be willing to follow you through the gates of hell, because they know that you would do the same thing for them.
I see. So you kind of put you at the same level with them.
Yeah.
Right? You're serving them and also you're being a role model for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So whatever they do, you will do the same. And
Yep. Exactly.
As a leader, you'll even do more and even better.
Yeah. There's a book written by an author named Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last. It refers to a practice in the Marines, which is one of the military units in America, where the leaders of the army unit are the last ones to eat. All of their people eat before them.
I see. So always put their subordinates first.
Yeah, you put their needs first.
Put their needs first. You're always the last. It reminds me of the movie, like Titanic. The ship captain was the last one to leave the ship.
Right.
So that kind of also kind of like a certain.
Exactly. The captain goes down with the ship. Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. So that's about leadership, and every company has its own unique culture. Would you please share some of the Cisco's culture with us?
So a couple of things that stick out to me about Cisco's culture is we're very collaborative, which I guess isn't surprising considering that we're a networking company. But everything that we do, we try to connect as many people to that process as possible to make sure that it's as good as possible. And so that's one. And then at least what I've seen at Cisco is that if you want to win, you win by helping others. If you're in it for yourself, or if you try to make yourself look good at the expense of others, you don't tend to be very successful in the long term.
I see. So the team-oriented, right?
Yep.
Very much. Success is attributed to others.
Yeah, it's very collaborative, very collective in our approach to work.
That's good. And also transparent communication.
Transparency is important at every company, because it's important that your employees feel like you're being fair and honest with them. Because if you want them to give their full effort, it's important that they feel like you trust them and that they can trust you. This is really hard now in tech, because it's very hard to measure whether an employee is giving their full effort to a job.
Yeah.
If you're in a factory and you got to put put screws into a machine, it's easy to tell whether or not you're doing your job.
That's like tangible.
Right. It's very tangible. If you're a software developer though, and you just sit at a computer all day clicking buttons, it's hard to know if someone's working well, or if they're working poorly, or if they're being, working extra hard, or
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust that you have to have.
Exactly. It's the same. It's the same in our company. It's a tech company as well. We are facing this challenging as well.
Yeah.
So any solutions?
I mean, not easy. I mean, the answer is you got to trust and empower your employees.
I see.
But that's hard.
And that's HR's job, right? To identify the right person.
Right. Yes. Hopefully,
the right person for the company, right?
Yes, exactly.
This is a person that can be trusted.
Yep. And then, you're right. You want to make sure you pick the right people, and then once you pick the people, you make sure that you give those people all of the tools and resources that they need to be successful, and remove any roadblocks or distractions that are going to prevent them from bringing their best to work each day.
Yes. Any tips on finding those people?
One thing that I'll say is when you interview employees or potential employees, it's important to rely on multiple data points, not just one. And
put all the pieces together.
Correct. So a few things that we do broadly in the HR in the industry is you make sure that multiple people interview a candidate for a job, and that before you all the people that interview that candidate talk and say, what do you think? Should we hire them? They all have to give their own score separately before talking to anyone else, so they can't be influenced by other people that interviewed them.
I see.
And then if you had, for example, 5 people interview a potential employee, and all of them separately, independently gave them a high score, that's a good indication.
I see.
Another one that's important is it's a strategy that we use in HR called behavioral interview questions. And so the logic behind it is that it's the only way to know what someone is going to do in the future, or I guess rather, the best way to know what someone will do in the future is to know how they've reacted in the past. That's the best indicator. It's not perfect, but it's the best indicator that we have. And so a behavioral question would be, tell me about a time when you had to meet a tight deadline. And then I want you as the interviewee to tell me a specific time when you had to meet a deadline. And more than just say, oh, I did this and it was really hard, but I met the deadline. Tell me why it was hard. Tell me what you did to meet that deadline. What steps did you take?
I see, to be more specific, right?
Yes. And if they can give very clear, specific answers about what they did in that situation, it's a good indicator. Again, not perfect. Interviewing is never perfect, but it's a good indicator that they can act that way in the future as well.
Yeah, because it's likely to happen again.
Yes,
company, right?
Exactly. And when you do behavioral interview questions, you can choose the behaviors that you want to interview for. So for example, if you're in a job where creativity is important, you would want to focus on behavioral questions around creativity. Or if it's a job where attention to detail is important, like a QA job, you would want questions on, tell me about a time when you were able to improve the quality of a product and how did you do it?
I see. And the role that you played in that,
yes,
in that process,
yes, exactly.
was the important, the critical role. Yeah.
So that's, that reminds me of something else, actually. This is a mistake that people make on resumes and in interviews. And so this might be helpful for the audience.
Okay, yeah.
Take credit, or at least, and this might be a cultural, I don't know if this works in China the same as it works in the United States, but a lot of people in the United States, they don't take enough credit for their work and their accomplishments. And so they'll say, my team did this, or my team did that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not interviewing your team, I'm interviewing you. So I need to know what you did.
Exactly, exactly. But some people, like in Chinese culture, we're taught to be modest, to be humble,
right.
Be humble, even though you contributed most in certain tasks, but you'd like to really, give the success, give the credit to the other team.
Right.
But maybe in the interview, during the interview, this should not be the case, right? You shall be bold enough or to stand up for yourself.
Oh, I think so. But again, I don't want to give bad advice to your listeners. But at least
it depends. Yeah.
If they're interviewing in the U.S., definitely make sure you. I mean, you don't want to be a jerk, but you should stand up for yourself. And if you did something, you should take credit for it.
Exactly. As long as you're honest,
right.
Don't lie. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So honesty is really important. Very, very much valued.
Yeah.
And I also know you do some seminars on career management as well.
Yeah.
Most of our audience, they are either college students or the newly graduated.
Okay.
I think they really need some guidance on their career, because most of them, they maybe the work life is just about to begin or has just begun.
Right.
So, any suggestions you would like to give to them?
I have a lot of suggestions.
Okay, good. We're all ears.
We probably don't have enough time. So the first thing that I'll say to people that are in college, and I don't know if this is an issue in China, but it's a huge issue in the U.S. is avoiding debt. A lot of students in America incur a lot of debt in order to go to school.
Oh, I see.
And
like
so
student loan.
Correct. And so by the time they're out of school, sometimes they have $100,000 of debt that they have to pay back.
Wow,
which
that's a lot of pressure.
It puts a ton of pressure on you, especially early in your career. Sometimes then, because you have such a large amount of debt you're trying to pay off, you take a job that may not be the job that you want or the job that you like. It's just the job that pays the most. And that can be a recipe for disaster, long term.
Yeah, in the long term.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's kind of the same in China. Many college students, they are right after they graduated. They tend to just choose the job that paid more.
Right.
Not the job that's very much related to the major they're studying in school. In a short term, you may say, okay, it's glamorous, it's good. But in the long term, that kind of
2 years later,
the wrong decision, and there were all the knowledge, the major they learned in school, will go in vain.
Right, exactly. Another thing that with people that are early in career that I end up talking about a lot is it's similar, and I know these sound more like personal finance decisions, but personal finance is actually very closely related to your career success. Making sure that you're saving money each month. You want to make sure that the phrase we use in America is paycheck to paycheck. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck.
Save for rainy days.
Right, exactly. You save for rainy day, because that way, if at some point you don't like your job, you get fired, you hate your boss, you have options,
Exactly.
But if you're paycheck to paycheck, you have no options.
Yeah. We have that term in Chinese. If you live on the paycheck to paycheck, that's called 月光族.
Oh, okay.
Like you live on paycheck to
paycheck.
Right. Then you will be so dependent on the company.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even though this certain job is not really appropriate, not suitable to you, you're kind of stuck there. You can't leave.
Yeah, exactly. Other things that I tell people early in career is, so in the United States, some people feel like if you switch jobs a lot, that's a bad thing.
job hopping,
But it's actually, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. And at least in the US, if you want to get raises and continue to get more money, the easiest way to do it is to switch jobs every few years. And so if someone has been in a job for 3 years and they don't like their job, they have no reason to not look for a new job. Now, if you love your job and you love your boss and you love your coworkers, you should probably stay put. You know, it's not worth risking messing that up.
But my opinion is maybe it has to be in the same line of the field that you're working, right? Or if you kind of change the job to a different field of work you've never been to, then you may have to start from scratch, from a very low level. And that will take quite a long time to finally get you in an important position to get a higher paid.
So the rule of thumb that I give to clients is you can either change the type of work you do or the industry that you do. But you can't change both. So for example, if I worked at Cisco in HR and I wanted to try something different, I could maybe switch to try and do something more operations focused. And that would be good. But if I tried, but stay within the same company and the same industry. If I tried to change both the industry and the skill, that would be really bad. Likewise, if I know that I'm going to change industries, make sure that you're sticking with what you know how to do well.
Exactly. You have to know your own strengths, right?
Right, exactly.
Make the best use of your skills, your strengths. So then that's also related to your skill building, right? You have to, maybe after you graduate from school, your major is one of the skills you have. But if you stick to one skill, it's not enough. You'd better either strengthen your one skill to make it perfect, or also develop some other skills to help you to become more competitive in the job market.
Well, this is a huge issue in the tech industry, because when people graduate from college, they have the latest skill sets that are very hot and in high demand. And so it's very easy to find a job, and some people then assume, oh, I'll always be hot, I'll always be in high demand. But after 5 years, your knowledge is now old. And so it's important that you keep learning, or else you'll be replaced by a new college student that has the latest skills.
You have to take iPhone, for example. iPhone upgrades every year, right?
Right.
Like a personal skill, you have to be like that as well. Upgrade your own competence, your skills every year. Otherwise, you'll get left behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people may surpass you.
We say learning is earning.
Learning is earning. Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, we learn by doing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Good. So that's the second suggestion you can give to the audience. Any other suggestions?
A few other things that come to mind. People make bad assumptions about their career when they're starting out. One is that they assume that my income will increase every year that I work. Which isn't true. At least I don't know about China, but in the US it's not true. In the US, your income peaks at about age 45.
Oh, at age 45, your income peaks. So
yes.
That's the highest income.
You'll still have inflation. You'll still have your 1 to 2% inflation, but you're not going to see any big jumps in your income on average for the average person after age 45.
After 45.
And so, but sometimes people always say, oh, I'll make more money later, so they procrastinate important work. And so that's one thing that people assume, like, oh yeah, I'll keep making more money, and it's just not true. At least, again, on average in the US, it's not true.
I see.
Another big one is people assume that I will work until I'm 65 and then I will retire. So 65 is in the United States, it's considered sort of the ideal retirement age. But the reality is that most people don't retire at age 65. A lot of people are forced to retire early because they get sick or they get laid off or whatever. Or in some cases, people, and my dad is actually in this boat. He retired at age 60, 62, 63. But he's bored to death. He needs stuff to do, and so.
I see. I understand. I understand that feeling. It kind of happened the same to my dad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My dad retired at the age of 16.
Okay.
Then I think he instantly got another job.
Well, right. So my dad, yeah, volunteers a ton now. He spends at least 40 hours a week volunteering and doing different things, just because he's still got a lot of knowledge and that he wants to use to help benefit society.
That's good. So it makes your life worthwhile, right? To feel that you're needed and you have the skill and you like to contribute to others.
Right.
So retirement doesn't mean you don't have to work.
Right. Exactly.
You want to continue contributing to the society, helping people.
Yeah.
That's a really positive and really meaningful thing to do. In addition to those, any other suggestions you have on the career management?
Yeah, a couple other things. One is, and this is a huge problem in the United States right now, is being open to relocating. A lot of people get very fixed in, I have to work in Beijing or I have to work in Shanghai. But when you put that limitation, you immediately restrict the amount of opportunities that might be available to you.
I see.
And sometimes it can be. So I'll give an example. So Silicon Valley, where I work, 30 years ago there was a lot of focus on hardware, designing good hardware. Most of those jobs aren't in Silicon Valley anymore, though. They've moved to other states and other cities in the United States. And so, but a lot of hardware engineers want to stay in Silicon Valley. And by doing that, that really restricts the opportunity and potential that they could have.
I see. You have to be open to relocation. But the thing is, in China, many people are facing this as well. Either it is you're just used to living in a certain area, you have your own social circle, and also your parents. Many Chinese people like me, I'm an only child. We have parents to look after. You have to make sure wherever you work, you're not too far away from your parents.
Oh, interesting.
Because whenever they need help, you hope you will be the first one to be there to look after them. Those are the limitations.
That's a good point, and that's it's interesting you bring that up. I just thinking about my parents. My parents live in Seattle. And luckily, my sister also lives in Seattle, and so she can, is my parents' age. I don't have to worry. Someone will be able to take care of them.
You're not an only child.
I'm not an only child, but you are right. And likewise, if I moved to Texas, and I told my parents, hey, you need to move with me so I can take care of you, they probably wouldn't be very happy, because their whole life is Seattle.
Exactly.
Oh, that's an interesting
It's
point.
It's hard for old people.
Old
age people
to change. So I will say this though, especially if you're at the middle of your career and you feel like you're stuck. One of the easiest ways to get unstuck is to relocate, because it opens up a whole new set of opportunities. But obviously, there's certain limitations, like you mentioned.
So there are always pros and cons,
right?
You have to weigh your options.
The other thing that, the other piece of advice that I give a lot, especially to young folks, is to diversify their revenue streams. And so that means that they shouldn't rely on one company for all of their income. From a very young age, they need to start practicing developing multiple sources of income. The phrase we use in the United States is called a side hustle.
Side hustle.
A side hustle. So in addition to your day job, you have something that you do on your own on nights or weekends to make a little extra money. And the reason that you do this is, one, it helps you be grateful for a job. So for me, occasionally I coach people on career management, but it's hard work, and it doesn't make a ton of money, and so it makes me more grateful for my regular job, and appreciate all the good things that my employer is doing for me.
I see.
But it also teaches me important skills, like how to sell myself. How to promote, how to hustle is the phrase that we use in the States. But it's also important because, especially as you mature in your career, it can be dangerous to be too dependent on your employer for everything. Yep. So luckily, if you're married or you have a partner who also works, you already have diversification. Because you have two sources of income from probably different companies.
Yep.
And so that way, if one of you lost your job or if one of you needed to stay home with a kid or whatever, there's someone to fall back on.
Yeah, there's always a backup.
Exactly, there's always a backup. And I guess that's the real point, is you need to make sure that there's always a backup. So as I'm starting to get older, I'm moving more and more of my money into other investments as well, so that I can earn passive income. Because ultimately, when I retire, all my income needs to be passive, right?
Yeah.
And so the more I can start doing that now, the easier it will be in retirement.
Yes. So you really have a very clear and very good way to plan your life, plan your work. But in China, sometimes some people find it hard to get a job. Once you get a job, you have to really appreciate. And working overtime is also common among some people. In English, you have a phrase, it's like work to live or live to work, right? You have to really find the balance. So if you work like a side job, will that be too much for you? You will burn yourself out?
Well, that's a good point. And there's three things I feel very strongly about. And if you can't do these three things, you're working too much.
What are they?
Well, you're not going to like them.
I like them.
The first is, I'm old school. So the first is 8 hours of sleep a night.
8 hours sleep.
If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep a night, you need to look at, what can I change? Because if you're not getting 8 hours of sleep a night, it is influencing your health.
Good.
The second one is your regular exercise.
Regular exercise, okay.
So if you're so busy that you don't have time to exercise regularly, that's another indication. Maybe.
How often do you exercise?
I try to exercise 3 times a week.
3 times a week. How long each time?
So I go run. I like to run, and so I usually run for about an hour. 3 times a week.
I'll keep that in mind.
But and then the third thing is
healthy body, healthy mind, right?
Right, and then the third thing is your human relationships. If you don't have enough time to invest in your human relationships with your family and friends, that's a problem. At least in my opinion, that can be a problem.
Good, yeah. I don't mean the problem is good. I mean, I like those three.
Right.
Yeah, three questions. Yeah, 3 things to remind you, right?
Because if you don't have those 3 things, it doesn't matter how successful you are professionally.
Exactly. Because those 3 things are.
Yeah.
If priceless.
If you're not healthy or if you've neglected your family and friends, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire because you don't have the things that matter most.
Very good. Well, I think the audience can really check by yourselves whether you have those 3 things or not. If you have those 3 things, you're kind of a successful person, right?
No, not at all. I'm a work in progress. I'm still learning.
I see. Yeah.
And improving. To use a software phrase, I'm still Cameron 1.0. I'm still the early version of Cameron. But I'm hoping that each year I release a new and improved version of me, like software release.
Good.
And so that's I have a lot of work to do, but the goal is just to do a little bit better each day, and hopefully by the end of my life, I'll be a pretty okay person. So
pretty fine product.
Right, yeah, pretty good product, right.
Oh, very good suggestion. Yeah, no, there's a lot I need to really ask myself, how I can balance my work, my life.
Yeah.
And also, also another good thing about doing some side job is you can also develop your other skills. Maybe discover some other resources that can also be used to help you with your regular job. You never know.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It's funny. Steve Jobs talks about this in his biography a lot. How a lot of random things that he learned from jobs or from elective classes in school actually ended up having a very important influence on the Apple computer.
Yeah.
But in fact, he talks about he took a I think it was a calligraphy class or something.
Really?
In
Chinese calligraphy?
No, not Chinese calligraphy. Like English calligraphy, I guess.
Okay.
But then that influenced when he was setting up the Mac computer and the typeface for it and the fonts.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
He was able to make a lot better decisions that made the screen look a lot more appealing to the consumer.
Consumers, yeah.
So at the time, it probably seemed like taking that elective class was a waste of time. But it actually ended up having an important impact on a product.
Yeah. So many things are really connected, related to each other. As long as you enjoy doing what you do, there's always a way those things can all meet up at a certain time in a certain way.
Yes.
And you will surprise yourself.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So many
Thanks,
good
Alan.
suggestions, advice, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you.